grief is a really integral part of the human experience.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't know how to deal with that in a healthy way. And honestly, I'd argue that there may not be a healthy way to deal with grief as much as there is just a way to deal with grief. Do you need some way of expunging that emotion without taking it out on others or harming yourself? Like, it's just really hard to open a game shop and people actually show up and play games for work-life balance reasons for the owner, for COVID reasons. Getting people out and interacting in a space like that is just tough. And even before COVID, it was hard. There is such a thing as too much ambition. There is such a thing as being too content, because that breeds complacency, and complacency is laziness.
Right.
You need a balance of both. It's a balance, which America does not have. If you're not learning, you're dying. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
And that's just how life works.
What are some positives you take out of life? Hey Tyler, how's it going?
Hey Pratik, it's going good, man. It's been so long since I've actually seen you.
It has been a while, about 2 months, 2.5 months.
Oh,
because we met for dinner, right?
We did. We went to dinner. We went to great spot downtown.
Actually threw up the night after, but anyway.
Oh, really?
Not the night after, the same night.
No, never mind. Maybe it's not so good.
No, I think the food was fine. It was just, I probably had a stomach bug or something before it anyway. But anyway, probably not the best way to start a podcast if you're eating or, doing something else.
Food warning.
Food warning, yeah.
Be safe out there. Cook
Sorry
your chicken.
about that. Yeah, cook your chicken.
Cook your chicken.
Cook your chicken, indeed. After that, very weird opening. Let the people know who you are, Tyler, what you do, any likes, dislikes, future aspirations, whatever you want to share.
Oh boy. So my name's Tyler Rippy, and for those who know me, you'll kind of know that I've got a little bit of a personality. And people usually look at me and like, uh-oh, he's special. And sometimes it's like, he's special, and sometimes you're like, ooh, he's special. Right? You get the two kinds. But I am a board game creator. The Four Clans, www.the4clans.com. Board game that I made with two of my best friends who are also 20 years older than me. Shout out to Evan and Jeff. They'll watch this later. I'm also a board member on the Japanese American Society of Oklahoma. We do cultural excursions. We do taiko drum nights, anime nights, tea ceremonies, all kinds of fun stuff. We had a Japanese stonemason here last week, and that's on Instagram, JSOOK, I believe. I probably got that wrong, and someone's going to get mad at me later.
We'll figure that out. We can link it always in the description if they're okay with it. So that's fine.
I'm probably going to see this later in life, and I'm going to kick myself in the butt for this, but I'm also writing a graphic novel, if that goes anywhere, on top of all this other stuff I'm doing. I'd love to do some voice acting one day. I want to work in the entertainment industry, something to do with Japan, JRPGs, anime. Get me in it, except for animating, because the state of that is a whole different thing that I could get into. But yeah, I'm a creative. I'm very involved and energetic. And now that I finished school, which was recent, I'm selling postage meters, which is crazy. It's just like not where I saw myself at all, and I'm cooking up a little bit of everything.
Okay. You gotta explore your curiosities one way or another, right?
Right.
So talk to me about the graphic novel. Why?
Okay, so the graphic novel is actually really cool. I haven't thought about it in a while. Honestly, I haven't written in quite some time because I've been busy with a new job. You know how it is. You take on something new, consumes your life, especially whenever you work or don't eat and starve. So the graphic novel is actually going to be in my own way. It'll be a journey through like grief and acceptance. Honestly, it still hasn't been super planned out yet. I've got a general idea. I've got some really cool ideas, but it's not like all set in stone. I've got a title and I've got like maybe 6 pages written. I also have an idea of who I want to illustrate it. Who knows? Maybe it'll be done by the next 6 years or so, but I'm not sure. Because grief is a really integral part of the human experience.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't know how to deal with that in a healthy way. And honestly, I'd argue that there may not be a healthy way to deal with grief as much as there is just a way to deal with grief.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of pain and acceptance and understanding in that. And there's different ways of approaching that idea. And whenever I was young, I experienced a lot of loss. So I think this is my way of helping people to acceptance while understanding that, an experience is just that, an experience.
Right.
Sometimes you don't have to attach positive or negative connotations to it. Now, unfortunately, most times with grief, it's always a negative connotation attached to it. But I don't know. Sometimes you got to remove yourself from your own personal sphere, your perception, in order to overcome the challenge that has presented itself to you.
Right. Why do you say that there's probably no healthy way of dealing with grief?
So I mean that in a very abstract
Sure,
sense,
sure,
right?
sure.
Because I think
elaborate on that thought.
no matter what, whenever a change happens that causes grief in you, and grief is a strong word,
right?
An extremely strong word. So the stronger the word, the stronger the connotations and
The
supposedly the meaning, whatever the meaning of words means.
Fair.
But if something causes you to be in a state of bereaving or grieving, which I think is the right way to say that. I'm not sure. I think bereaving is attached to grief. I don't think I'm crazy.
English majors, you can correct us in the comments below.
Yeah, please nail me. Just freak, bam, get them. But yeah, that idea is, I don't know. It will cause you to do some things that you're probably not proud of.
Right.
I'm not saying anything super crazy. Like
Sure.
You don't have to go get addicted to Oxycontin or whatever. There are ways of doing that, but you're probably going to say some ugly things. You're probably going to feel some ugly ways or think thoughts that you don't necessarily normally think. And it's a part of the process. You got to let some of that stuff happen. Because you need some way of expunging that emotion without taking it out on others or harming yourself, right?
Right. I think a lot of those things take a lot of time, right? And I think that's one thing that we tend to lack is patience towards those things. Because again, at least maybe that's how I feel about it from my perspective or what I've kind of seen around me. But I feel like there's this feeling inside of me usually whenever I feel like I'm in a bit of a pickle, if you will, to sort of get out of it right away. But then sometimes you just don't. You just can't for any odd reason. So you have to take a step back and give yourself some time to be able to get out of those things. Would you say it was sort of similar to the way you got out of your grief, or you're still getting out of it?
See, that's hard because in my specific case, the reason why I'm writing Red Rider is because I lost my grandfather died and it was bad. And
Okay.
then
you don't have to go into it.
Yeah, I'm not no internet, not today. That's
Fair
not.
enough.
And then I lost my grandmother pretty young too. On at 14.
Sure.
And then my other one at 2. So I lost 2 grandparents from both sides at 2, and then I lost one at 14, and I got my grandpa still with me. But those things really affected me, right? My mom had actually said, and this is kind of wild. She said, "I've never seen a 2-year-old express grief before." Like exact words. The first time she told me that story, I got chills. Like there was some part of me that remembered.
She was telling you the story of how you were expressing grief?
Right, because I was really attached to my grandfather.
Sure.
My papa. And she said, you didn't understand where he had gone, but you knew he was gone.
And that he wouldn't be coming back, sort of thing.
Right. I would apparently pick up his picture and throw it across the room and stuff. And she said it was just horrible to watch. Man, what a fun way to start this.
That's okay. That's okay.
But it's that experience kind of led me to I really want to write this graphic novel. You know how life gets. I don't know if it'll ever actually finish, but currently I'm working on it, and I'm thinking it's going to be 3 books. I don't think I can keep it to 1, which is crazy. Whenever you've only written 10 pages of the first book, but we'll see. And then you got to get it illustrated. I want it to be done in color, so printing those out in color is going to be wild. I'll probably do a Kickstarter at some point. There's a couple of Kickstarters that I actually got to do in my life now. There's things that I'm planning, things I'm involved with. It's wild.
Right. Hey, but I think that's the thing, right? I think you're willing to put yourself out there, and that's where you start, right? That's where you start to sort of explore your curiosities, try to figure out what you want to do, and then once you start doing it, you sort of fine tune it and keep fine tuning it and learn new things and figure things out, and then you get there eventually. And maybe, I mean, not to say that you get there eventually and you're done, but you can still probably grow on a little more or whatever. Like, this graphic novel could turn into something else, So who's to say? So no, that's cool that you're at least starting to work on it, or at least thinking about starting to work on it, because you already have a title, you said, and 6 pages written.
Right. I've got a title. I've got like 10 pages written, and I've got another about, it's probably 15, 20 pages long of just like kind of storyboarding and figuring out what I want to do with the overarching thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the stuff in between that's really, really important for building the characters and figuring all this stuff out.
Gotcha.
That I'm really figuring out. That's the hard part, because I've always been a big picture person. I'm not a details person. So and that goes to, I think that kind of calls back to experiencing the experience and removing yourself from it, because sometimes you can be experiencing something like, oh god, this is awful.
Right.
But if you can remove yourself from that and be like, okay, well, what am I learning? What am I failing at? What am I gaining from this? Or is anything happening at all?
Right.
Like the whole reason for writing the book, that experience of grief is a spectrum of emotion.
Sure.
And applying yourself to an impossible situation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most impossible things that humans face in their entire life, which is the absence of being. Because from the moment that you're born, you are being.
Right.
So what happens when you stop? What happened from before?
Right. The unknown.
Yeah, it's freaky, and people freak out about that. People deal with that in different ways.
Sure.
Myself, religion. I get really involved in, churches, non-denominational churches, and all those things, and I try to be a force for the better in those things in order to confront the unknown with a positive outset, while not negatively impacting anybody else's experience, because that's not cool.
Right.
I'm not going to show up and be like, hey, believe what I say. Yeah. And people have that view of church and religion in general, I think, now, and I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. I think, unfortunately, it comes from a long line of bad reputation that's been a precedent for many, many years. So,
right, because would you say that the bad reputation has come from bad practices of the past?
I think so. I think there's a lot of religious practices that people are scared of. That unknown factor is really scary. Do you know why? It's Halloween when we're recording this.
Yes.
Literally, the day that we're recording this, it's Halloween. So this is a fun question. What makes scary things scary?
I never thought about that. Don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
The reason why scary movies are scary. Have you ever noticed? What scary movies have you watched?
Not a lot, because I'm not a fan of horror.
Okay, cool, awesome.
I think the one movie I watched. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
The one movie I watched was this movie called Frankenfish, I think.
Oh, dude.
I was, in my defense, I was probably 7 or 8.
Oh.
I did not sleep that night. It was just a fish eating humans, basically. And I remember like very random images from the movie, like how there were a lot of tiny babies of the fish, and how you think that the fish is dead, but then the ending is basically the babies of the fish is like eating someone up, I think. I might be forgetting a lot of this movie or making things up at this point, but yeah, that's kind of like the vague memory I have of watching a scary movie, and I've never been a fan of wanting to or I've never sought out another scary movie since.
Frankenfish ruined you.
I guess it did. I guess it did.
Don't, kids, stay away from Frankenfish.
Have you heard about Frankenfish?
No, but this is the funniest thing that I've heard all day. So okay. I wanted to elaborate on it, because Frankenfish of all things. So I don't exactly have a great correlation for that. I was hoping you were going to say something a little bit more mainstream,
Got it.
or something I knew of.
You can pick something mainstream, and we can go from there.
Right. So basically, in Cloverfield's more of a suspense movie, but we'll go with Cloverfield. So,
okay. What is that movie?
So it's a found footage film. The first one, there are 3 of them.
Okay.
By the way, this is gonna get me in a lot of trouble, but I actually like the second one the least. For people who watch that, like, that's the most critically acclaimed Cloverfield movie like ever. Gotcha. I just think there was too much going on in it. I really think the first and the third one are better, with the first one being the best. But the first one is a found footage film from 2007, 2008. somewhere in there. And essentially the premise is you go into this party for this guy who's going to Japan, which is weird, by the way. I watched this movie after I didn't get in the jet program. Really strange. But and there are in New York City, they're celebrating him going away. He's having like a spat with his girlfriend. There's some issues there. And then all of a sudden, like they're out on the rooftop, and then you just see this thing go poof, like stuff starts exploding. They're like something bad is happening, and no one knows what's going on. So everyone runs down to the street and gets out. And you spend a long time in this movie trying to figure out what exactly is going on. The reason why that's freaky, well, not only because of the clear connotations from an American culture perspective,
sure,
you don't know if this is like a terror attack, if it's, something that's really like truly, the work of people, or if it's something the work of the unknown. And because you don't know what's going on, it makes things extremely suspenseful and scary. And it gave the creators some liberty to make some snap decisions. Like I believe, spoilers.
Spoiler alert. A little too late, but spoiler alert.
Yeah, oops.
It's all good.
There's a moment in the movie where the Brooklyn Bridge like snaps and it ripples, and you don't know why it's doing that. You're just like, holy shit. The Brooklyn Bridge.
You can curse, by the way, it doesn't matter.
Okay, gotcha. Holy shit. The Brooklyn Bridge just and it does the whole wavy thing, right? So
I like that you're adding sound effects to this, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very important. That's the voice acting thing. I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
We'll get onto that,
but that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's scary because you don't know what it is.
Right.
And that's such a big thing. And of course, now I'm talking about, I can't pull great examples, but
that's okay.
There's a lot of like suspense horror stuff. There's this thing called The Promised Neverland, and it's an anime. In that show, spoiler alert, it's an orphanage, and when people get adopted, they leave, and this whole time they're taking tests trying to figure out who the smartest one is, whatever. Well, at like episode 3 or 4, you find out that the kids who get adopted are actually getting murdered, and their brains are harvested to be consumed.
This is an anime?
Yeah, anime's super dark. Like, it's crazy.
Yikes, all right.
I got access to that stuff when I was 12. Not a good thing. Ruined me forever. But it also shaped my life in so many ways. Not that specific show, but a bunch of different shows.
Sure.
From that 2012 era. So, yeah. It's because you don't know, and it's surprising. And then once you know what's happening, it makes it so much scarier. So, like, why? And then it's the why. What is going on? And then you're like, oh no, what is in place that people are getting eaten? Specifically children. Right. So, just their brains, though. The rest of it goes to waste.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
People do eat brains in some part of the world. Like, not human brains, of course, but or at least maybe they do. Who knows?
Yeah, spooky season.
Right. Spooky season indeed. Yeah, like goat brain or like cow brain and things of that nature are eaten. I know. So I know for a fact. So yeah.
Is the Indiana Jones thing like real?
A what?
Like, are monkey brains a delicacy somewhere?
I don't know about monkey brain, but I do know goat brain is quite common in some parts of India. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Monkey brain, I don't know. Monkey brain also, well, I don't know, because Hindus do look at monkeys as religious in some context as well.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if monkey brain is eaten by Hindus. Maybe some other people do that I'm not aware of. If there are people in India who eat monkey brains, please let me know.
Let us know, for real. I'd be very interested to know if Indiana Jones is an actual good... it's not an India thing. In the movie that the monkey brain scene happens, I believe that they're in the Middle East.
Oh, you said Indiana Jones. I don't know why I heard India. Anyway.
No, but I mean, hey, it was a good segue just because I didn't even know people ate goat brains. That's just a thing that happens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people eat a lot of things, like for that matter, people eat bull testicles. So,
right. Calf fries when you're here in the South. Hoorah, baby.
I think some people call it Rocky Mountain oysters.
Yeah, that's right. I have no idea why, by the way. Yeah. I grew up here. I have no idea why.
I think I've heard why, but I cannot remember for the life of me why they call them Rocky Mountain oysters. But yeah, there's that. But I like how we've segued from grief to graphic novels to like bull testicles. But hey, that's the nature of conversation.
It's
Sometimes,
so
right?
great. It's so great. I've been so excited for this.
Hey, thank you, and yeah, thank you for coming. I know I would say this at the end again, but thank you anyway. I'm glad that we're able to do this and have this very tangential conversation.
I've missed
So-
this so much. We used to do this in the office
In the
all the
office,
time.
right? Right.
Every day. Oh,
Yeah. For those of you curious, Tyler and I both used to work for the same office at UCO's campus, but now we both work at different places. He's graduated. I'm still in school doing my second year of master's. But yeah, so there's that. But speaking about religion, and you brought religion up, it's sort of been a consistent theme on recordings that I've done for like the past few weeks. So I probably won't ask the same questions that I have asked those people, just for the sake of maybe adding a little variety.
right.
Because isn't variety the spice of life? Isn't that the phrase? Or am I butchering that up completely?
The spice of life is variety. I don't know. And this is the spice of life.
Right.
Right here.
Right.
We're
Right.
capturing that essence.
Right. Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So yeah, English. I don't know why I'm calling out to English majors over here, but hey, if you want to correct me on that phrase, please do.
Fix
Or
all of
anybody.
our linguistic problems, or you're on the hook.
Right.
I will find you.
Oh, God. What was I going to say? Shit, lost my train of thought.
Spice of life, religion,
Yes.
variety.
Okay, there we go. Isn't this region called like the Christian Belt? Am I wrong in saying
The
that?
Bible Belt.
The Bible Belt.
It's the Bible Belt. And the reason for that, as far as I understand, this is not an area that I'm super proficient in. I just know that the Bible here. You know what? We have the power of the internet. Let's figure it out.
Let's figure it out.
But just for fun, let's figure out. Let's see my definition, right? So my definition of the Bible Belt is mostly southern states that are heavily influenced by Christianity. You know, Texas, Oklahoma. You got Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, stuff like that. I feel like is Bible Belt. The Bible Belt. Oh wow! So it's actually Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, parts of Florida, a bunch of other states that I don't remember the name of right now. Did not pay attention to geography.
It's all good.
Oh my gosh! Wikipedia is great. So it's in the United States. Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, Virginia, and parts of New Mexico, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. So Tennessee's the only one that's not on there. But I'd be very surprised if it isn't influenced some way by that. There's a lot of churches around here, right? Like a lot of churches. Just whenever you're in the car next time and you're riding around, just count how many churches you pass. There's a ton. Right.
Yeah, that is kind of true. Now that you mention it, I think there's a couple right around us over here.
Yeah, no, actually there's 6 because for work, I have to know exactly what all of those are. So
that is true.
There were 6 I could think of that are right next to us off the top of my head. And there's probably in this area alone, I mean, it would surprise me if there wasn't at least 30, maybe 50 even. And that's just a rough guesstimation based off of how much I know is around.
Right. Because I mean, we kind of have to know that for work. I don't know if I want to get into the details of that.
Oh no, we can't.
Yeah.
Like legally, I can't. I have a non-compete agreement, and I also believe a small NDA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, is it an NDA? I don't remember what I signed. That's real bad.
You signed something?
No, but like proprietary company secrets, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But gotcha. I can tell you this that I.
Oh, so I thought you were talking about the job that we used to do. But you're talking about...
Oh, I'm talking about your
current job. Okay, yeah.
That's the job we used to do too. I forgot. I didn't forget about the job that I used to do, but
like the fact that we would have to, or you may have mostly reached out to churches at that point,
right?
Or,
some different stuff for work. I've had to work with some churches in the past.
Right. So that's what I was thinking of when you started saying NDA. I was like, did our boss have you? I was gonna say his name. Did they have you
No.
sign an NDA? I was like, huh?
No.
Right. Anyway.
I signed a non-compete agreement for my current company, but also like listing clients and stuff is bad practice.
Right.
So
Yeah. No,
like,
I respect that.
yeah,
No, I
I don't want to
respect
get into that anyway.
I respect
But
that.
I have worked with churches for my
Sure.
current job as well as jobs in the past.
Right.
So and I kind of generally have to know the area. Yeah, not just for the job that we did, but also for what I'm doing now. You know,
right.
Fun stuff. All kinds of churches are businesses too, which is a whole different conversation, especially in the context of the United States and the system that we have and the different liberties and things that we enjoy being in the United States, right? Separation of church and state, things like that. Religion influences people in different ways here.
Right. Yeah. So, I think religion influences people in different ways in all parts of the world, right? Like,
right.
I guess it's something, I guess it's just accepted at this point. But what I was trying to get at was, for starters, it feels like places, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a very uncooked thought, which might have some validity to it. Some history buff could probably give us more information on this. But I feel like places where immigrants can come in, like, not saying that Christianity is not practiced there, but they're not part of the Christian belt from the states that you rattled off. Like, I'm talking about the East Coast and the West Coast. Like, New York is not part of it, or California is not part of it. I guess what I'm trying to get at is there like a lack of external influence here that makes this the Christian belt? I know this might be very offhanded, but I'm just curious to know if that's something that you've thought about.
So why is the Bible Belt the Bible Belt?
The Bible
why
Belt,
has not the Bible Belt expanded to parts of the country that are pretty well, I don't want to say infamous because that's not right, that are pretty known to have different thoughts and views on religion and what that brings, right?
Not so much from a perspective of expansion necessarily, but just sort of thinking about it from a sense of the entire country, possibly.
Okay.
You know,
I think I've got a good way to kind of answer this while also expanding on the thought. So for a very long time, I feel like the states that are within the Bible Belt did not have a whole lot of external influence coming in and bringing in different ideas and thoughts and culture. Because in the United States, before the Louisiana Purchase, you know, there were a bunch of different countries that owned parts of the United States.
right.
So after, you know, certain parts got to be developed first, and then basically everything south of Louisiana got bought like way later in the state's actual history, resulting in less influence and less different important cultural advancements happening in the lower parts of the states until way later. There's a long list of that, some of which have connotations which are kind of very hotly debated. And there's a lot of things I can think of off the top of my head that like I think resulted because there was a lack of cultural understanding. Not all of that was the South, but a lot of it was the South and just kind of how they viewed things and how things were going. I mean, from like the Trail of Tears and here, right? Man, I'm gonna get this wrong and I'm gonna get jumped on, but I believe it's called the Tulsa Massacre.
Okay,
and that was bad. You might want to look into some of the stuff before you include it in the episode. But like, yeah, so the Trail of Tears, right? Persecution of Indian peoples, indigenous. Well, I say Indian, it's Native American.
Native American, yes.
Right. History books, fun.
Right.
Indigenous people. You know, of course, the March of Death that happened, terrible. The Tulsa Massacre, which happened here, I believe a long time later than that. And that was targeted at African Americans. People burned black homes and businesses, and it was not cool.
I think it's from 1913, right?
I think so. I don't know.
That's okay.
Historical accuracy, I know. But I feel like when that happened, when the Tulsa massacre happened, I feel like a lot of the world was starting to move in a positive direction, and then like that happening was a result of a lack of external forces really being a part of the South. But I wasn't alive back then. B, I'm not a historian, and C, I just know what I know.
And D, these are just opinions.
Right. 100%. I can't claim to be the most factual.
Fact.
You're right. So it's for the sake of conversation, yeah. So my point is to say, in my personal experience, I've seen this area and the areas around it grow by 20 times in the last 10 years. So I really think we're starting to see that cultural influence come through here, and I think it will really change how people interact and what people do. I think religion is still going to be a very important part in people's lives, especially in this area. And there's a lot of culture around that. You Texas God and beer, right? Like it's kind of like the Southern mantra in a weird way. Like that's just what we're equated to, and I think there's a reason for that. Yeah.
I don't know why that was the thought that came to my mind, but I wanted to just expand on it to see what opinions you had on it, because I think it's fascinating, right? Like how movement of people over the past thousands of years has sort of affected the world today. I mean, I guess if you think about it very macroscopically, it seems kind of wild to think about. But I know there's a lot of history out there to suggest why things are the way they are, and yada yada yada. But I don't think it makes it less fascinating that things have happened the way they have. But anyway, very hard light turn, left turn, wherever this turn is.
Yeah,
going.
We're all over the road.
Right, but
somebody
that's okay.
better call the cops, because we should not be driving.
Well, none of us are intoxicated, but
true.
Right.
Just the conversation.
Just the conversation, but that's okay.
Decided to take us.
That's okay.
Thank God for editing.
But hey, no, I'm not. I'm probably not going to cut a lot of this out.
Oh, fantastic!
Just going to leave it the way it is. I'll just put in time codes to where people can click whatever they want to listen to. If they want to listen to the whole thing, be my guest.
Oh my gosh!
But hey, that's okay. What I was going to ask you was about the board game that you created with your friends. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so the Four Clans. Love this game. You have 2 army decks and 2 spell decks.
Elaborate on what those are for some of us who might not know what that is.
So 2 army decks consist of 2 decks of 52 cards, and they're unique characters, and those characters have numbers on them.
Okay.
Whoever has the bigger number at the end of a battle wins. And you keep going until somebody can't draw out of their army pile anymore. And the way that you interact with your opponent is with your spell deck, and you cast spells at your opponent's army to hurt them, sometimes help them, so you can set them up, help yourself, kind of thing. It's got a lot of variety, a lot of strategy. And how this happened, I started working with Evan and the team. The team being Evan and Jeff. There are 3 of us.
Still a team.
True. In 2019, I actually got the game as a Christmas present, and I was like, where'd you find this? I asked the person who gave it to me, where did you find it? And she goes, oh yeah, I know this guy from our local library, and he's been talking about this game for years, and I wanted to get you something that you have no way of ever having heard of. So I unwrap this thing. I play the crap out of it. I still am a marketing student. Always a student, never the master. But yeah, I was, really getting into. I was like, man, I'm doing general business basics right now. I really want to start getting into marketing. So there was a phone number at the back of the rule book. So I called the guy. I'm like, for $20 and a sandwich, I'll be your marketing guy. And it's been 4 years, and the game has gotten bigger. We went from 0 players to 10 consistent players. I'm so proud of that number.
It is upward today. It is growing upward.
It's 11 or 12 now. And I mean, this happens in strictly our free time, mostly when all of us can get together. So and they both have families, and they have just families.
Right, they have lives outside of the game. Like the game was just a hobby that now has 12 people playing it.
Right. And whenever you got to support people, it
Right.
becomes, for me, I can just throw my time at whatever and with no consequences. They don't have that luxury. So,
Sure.
but yeah, it's a team of 3 dudes super passionate about bringing games to people and a unique experience. And that's what the Four Clans is. So, very proud of my work on that. I've written lore for some characters. I have written cards. I helped reword a ton of the cards for the second print. We're working on revising the entire rule book. Starting to use Chat GPT for that just because it's way better at articulating certain ideas. Thinking about using Chat GPT. We've reworded some stuff. I don't know. No changes are final on that yet. So stuff's hard. All of our cards are strictly generated from human brain though. So
what do you mean by that?
So like every time we sit down, the 3 of us always talk about card ideas first before we put it into the game. And we really value the interactions that we have in the creation of those cards. We really don't want those coming out of anything but us. Not that, we're against AI or whatever. Speaking for myself here, just like we haven't had to resort to Chat GPT yet to write cards. Just because we always come up with something interesting or fun, and then we test it out, and then we put it in the game, or we don't, or we rehash the idea, and then we put a different version of that idea in the game. We've never had to resort to external tools outside of ourselves for that.
I see what you mean. Is this something that you guys are looking to grow, or is it just
absolutely.
something?
Yeah, that's why I gave the website at the start of this. Yeah, we sell cards online. I mean, we teach people how to play it. We have a Discord server. I personally orchestrate game nights once a month, or I try to have it once a month.
Sure.
Not gonna lie, it's kind of tough sometimes, especially with all the other stuff that I'm doing.
Right.
But yeah, we try. It's really about building community and getting people involved in something that they can have fun with. That isn't expensive as traditional card games. Because I don't know if you've ever looked at eBay for Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which you probably haven't because you're a sane person. You're not crazy.
I know what Yu-Gi-Oh is, but I've not looked for them on eBay. But yeah,
some of the rarer cards, especially stuff that's played in tournaments right now. I mean, some cards can go easily for $500 to $800. And I've seen certain collectors go for thousands of dollars, depending on the card.
Hey, there's many ways to make money nowadays. I guess that's all you can say.
Right, and all of our stuff it's $10 a deck or $6 for a booster. If you buy them online, I think they're $1 cheaper, something like that. We gotta cover shipping somehow. But yeah, I mean, comparatively for the amount of value that we have, versus the crazy amounts of money that you have to spend to get something that's workable in some of the other card games, I think we have a competitive advantage in that sense. We offer entertainment of better value, in my opinion, for way cheaper. It's just that the trick of being noticed, and because we're such a small operation, it's hard to get people to get on board in terms of a nationwide sense, right?
Sure.
Because there's only so much the 3 of us can do. There's only so many people we can interact with.
Right.
Personally, whenever it starts to it needs to take on a life of its own and start growing on its own.
So are those 12 people all based in the state of Oklahoma?
Yeah, all of us are here.
Yeah,
all of us are here. We all we try and meet up as often as we can so we can work on stuff, put things together.
Sure.
Currently we have an Instagram that's being run by us and a couple other people, and it's fun. We're kind of having this series on our current Instagram guru. He's going through the phases of discovering the game and finding out what he likes about it, and kind of telling people through our Instagram what that's like. And that's something that I really enjoy. There's a real personal touch to this. It's extremely personal, and that really gives the game life. I know I just said it needs to be able to grow and live on its own, which is true. People need to talk about it, get the word out. get playing, get talking, send us emails with questions. I would say call us, but there's not a phone number actually. But yeah, send us emails with questions. We respond. I've actually done another podcast where I've kind of talked about this stuff. So yeah, it's a really cool. I don't know. It's just a cool thing that I get to do that I would love to do for full time. It's just, like
you gotta eat.
Gotta pay the bills, man.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. Were these cards like pre-produced already?
Oh no. So Evan, main man, drew a lot of them. And the rest of them are Oklahoma artists, except for our one Canadian. We have one Canadian. Loonies and toonies.
Don't know what that means.
So loonies are coins, and I believe they're like $1 bills here.
Okay.
And toonies are like $2 bills, but they're also coins.
Okay.
They only have them in Canada.
Gotcha. Okay. Loonies and toonies.
That's the extent of my Canadian culture knowledge. That and the giant inflatable duck that is paid for with tax dollars.
Where is this?
It's in Canada. They have a giant inflatable duck that they use Canadian tax money to fund.
Interesting. And I guess maple syrup's there too.
Right. Maple syrup is there. True. That's the maple leaf.
Right.
On the flag and all that. And moosin.
Right.
Meeson? Mooses. What's the plural moose?
Mooses?
It's just moose, I think. I think it's just moose. I think it has a plural. Doesn't have anything like a murder of crows.
Or is it goose, geese, moose, meese? I don't know.
Meeson. I think it's just moose.
Got it. Just moose. But anyway, like in terms of like trying to grow this into a community, or I guess maybe let's extrapolate that into like just card game communities and board game communities of that nature, because I'm personally not into that area, but it is quite intriguing to see how that can bring people together. And I feel like, and again, this is not me sort of, while it might come across as me saying it this way, in some sense, I feel like it's a good way to bring the nerds together, if you will, right?
Yeah, and it is.
Right.
That's actually a huge challenge that we face, because there used to be places where it felt like you kind of go and that's where you kind of do that. But our main spot got shut down because, he started a family and he sold all this board game stuff because he was busy with his family.
Sure.
And also, it seems like now, post-COVID world, right? Things are different now. Places close earlier. Like, it's really hard to go out on the weekend and actually spend a good amount of time there. We've resorted to going to places like Bricktown Brewery and like Chili's. We'll take over half of an Applebee's. And it is fun. They're fun memories, but also, you can't really do that. Like if they were busy or something, it's getting late, they're about to close. I don't feel comfortable hanging out there too long. Because they've already been there all day. But that's because the rapid rate of extinction that these places have, like, it's just really hard to open a game shop and people actually show up and play games for work-life balance reasons for the owner, for COVID reasons. Getting people out and interacting in a space like that is just tough. And even before COVID, it was hard. So there's a lot of value in terms of bringing community together. The issue is that the community really has to value that. The community needs to be involved in itself, on top of that community being involved in that niche. So you're basically looking for a niche inside of a niche. Because in American society right now, I feel like a lot of people are more, with how connected we are, we're super disconnected too. So I think people have an aversion to getting involved with things that make them uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that you have to be uncomfortable in order to be making progress. But I think there's a certain amount of open-mindedness you have to have in approaching a new thing in order to get any value out of it.
Right. So, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, in that sense, that's a real challenge that we have. It's hard to find places to play because you want to play. If you set aside a day, and I'm kind of an extremist, I'm putting aside the whole day. We're doing this. Like, we're going to get stuff done. Right. I've got 10 hours booked for this. The 10 hours will be for that, and if we keep going, we go. And if I get there early, we get there early.
Right.
but yeah, it's been a real challenge because a lot of the places that we have been going are closing on the weekends at like 8, and that's for business reasons and also for personal life reasons, right? For them, which is awesome, but it makes it real hard to actually grow a community around something that has a niche and get people involved and really excited, especially now that everything's digital, right?
Right. That was going to be my following point, in the sense that, is it the digital world that's also, or like, the major contributor to a lot of these in-person game shops possibly dying?
I think so. But I
Mm.
also think that the digital world is the only reason that some of them are alive, right? Because
Okay.
social media is such a great tool in order to get people engaged and involved. And
Mm.
I think that now that they're getting a steady stream of customers throughout the day, and if you go in the morning, right, it just so happens that we do a lot of evening things, and that's primarily due to scheduling. People are working full-time jobs all the time. A lot of the time, some of these guys don't have regular 9 to 5s, right? You you know, I'm very fortunate in the fact that I get weekends,
Mhm.
and like I don't have to be working during the weekends.
Right.
Um, so and that's on us. But that being said, and Kickstarter too. I feel like a big portion of Kickstarter is all board game startups, and
Mm.
like everyone has their own personal board game group that they hang out with, and they do
Mm.
that, and they don't like necessarily have like a community place where they go to,
Mm.
or if there is, that's specific to their town or city, or it's a really well known like place. I feel like it's a real good local spot, right?
Mm.
Like you got the bar with the nice tables in the back, and you go and you play board games at the bar,
Right.
or you've got your 4 friends who have always been super into board games, so you guys try out every new neat board game that you get, because some of
Mm.
those things run at a premium. Like
Mhm.
there's this one called Terrascape that's coming out. And I mean, I bought that, and I bought the nice one. And I mean, that was 250, right?
Mhm.
And that's also getting shipped from Hong Kong. So I probably paid for shipping and stuff too. So that pushed it to probably the 3. But it's a really nice, cool board game, and I value that a lot.
Mm.
It's just finding a community of people to try that out with. And there are
Mm.
conventions, and you can
Mm.
find people at conventions. I think it's what people do. I think people find their people at conventions, and it turns into a segmented group of nerds getting together with the other nerds that they like, so they
Mhm.
can do their stuff.
Right. 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 Yeah, because I think board games, if you know how to play them, can be fun. Um, Firstly, I'm saying that more so from a context of someone who doesn't play a lot of board games.
Right.
Um, but also, I think, yeah, like, whatever you can do to bring people together, I think, as long as nobody's harming each other, is a good thing, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
I think that community aspect is something that's really overlooked
Right.
now.
Yeah, because I think, especially with the world that we live in, somehow it feels like we're getting further and further away, even though we are connected. Like you said, we're connected, but we're disconnected, right? So
Mm.
it's that feeling of, oh, we have a lot of this access to people, but then we're sort of losing that nature of us being social creatures by just being around each other, talking to people in person, for the lack of a better word, like feeling the energy of another person around you, and so on, right? So if board games is one way to do that, well, why not, right? Like, why not do that? And you mentioned Kickstarters and like board games. I thinking of that. I've actually purchased 2 card games with the help of Kickstarter, because they were trying to raise some money to get their card games going. One of them was for a former UCO student. Actually, I've had it on the podcast a while back. Um, and the other one was for a channel on YouTube called Jubilee, for those of you who know.
Oh.
Both interesting card games, but yeah. So I guess to add credence to your point, yeah, it is very true that like a lot of these things sort of take off from Kickstarter. Um, do not a lot of these large game producing companies back this stuff?
So now we're getting into dangerous territory. If I, hey, look, I've got no intention of self harm. So if I disappear, big board game got me.
Got it.
uh, No, I joke, but really, there's a pretty big monopoly in Wizards of the Coast. Like, they have a really hard grip on the market. That and like Pokemon Company with the Pokemon TCG and Konami with Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of a strict card game sense, extreme, and Wizards of the Coast with Magic.
Can you touch on what all of these things are for some of us who might not know?
Right, forgot I'm a super nerd.
Nah, you're good. You're good. You're good. It's okay. It's okay.
No, I mean, I grew up like just eating this stuff with candy, and now it's become a part of my life. It's a part of my culture.
Right.
So it's weird whenever you're like, oh, you don't know about all this stuff. Whoa.
Yeah. Hey, that's okay. That's okay, right? Like, we're all learning something new, so it's all good.
So Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Very popular anime turned card game.
Right.
Or card game turned anime. I actually don't know. I feel like the anime happened first.
One or the other.
And then Pokemon, Pokemon.
A lot of people do.
And they have a trading card game. So, you buy card packs, like, get this, like $8-9 a pop. Expensive. And then sometimes you pull cards that are worth $200. The usual. Yeah, there's a Magic the Gathering card that Post Malone bought. Magic the Gathering was made by Wizards of the Coast, and it was the first real trading card game, as we know them today. And they had a Lord of the Rings set, collaboration, crossover, if you will. There was a Magic the Gathering card called the One Ring, which, if you know what Lord of the Rings is, that's the ring of power that survived whatever war that destroyed the other rings of power. It's the one ring to rule them all. And that card was worth $1 million on announcement. There was only one copy of it in existence. Post Malone bought it. I don't know for how much. Probably, if I had to guess, upwards of $5 million. I would say probably anywhere between $1 to $5 million. I'm sure someone could go look it up. If I remember correctly, I feel like it was purchased for $1 million, but I don't know. I don't think they actually ever released it. Somebody, funny enough, Canada. It was a Canadian that got it.
Gotcha. That's $5 million is a lot of money.
Right. I mean, even $1 million for a card like that is a lot of money.
That's true.
I
it's
can't
$1 million.
spend $1 million on a card. Are you crazy? Like, I can't do that.
Right.
But that goes to my point. Wizards of the Coast not only has a great hold on the trading card game market, less so now that Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon are a thing. People like those games, and there are other trading card games that are starting to break through the mold there. Board games too. They make all kinds of board games. I believe Wizards of the Coast owns D&D. I'm going to fact check myself real quick, but I mean D&D, right?
Right.
So like that's
I know
crazy.
of D&D. I don't know how to play D&D.
Oh, don't worry, we can fix that. We can fix that here.
I don't know if I want that to be fixed, but okay.
We're fixing it. Owns D&D? Question mark. Right, so Hasbro owns it, but Wizards of the Coast is a subsidy of Hasbro, and Hasbro owns the rights to Monopoly.
Oh, okay.
And that's a different spectrum of board games. I'm talking kind of a nerdier niche side, but whenever you think about it, like Hasbro, the toy company, owns a lot of stuff. Like they own the production of Ouija boards?
Ouija boards?
Ouija boards. Yeah.
OUIJA board.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's considered a board game, which is
right.
What? But yeah, I mean there's a wide that's a huge. There are lots of very powerful, very economical people that have a grip on this, and usually whenever you get a high concentration of money in any given market, they get really, really good at protecting their assets.
Right.
And that just goes for any kind of business. If you're a good business, you know how to keep yourself above the competitors, right? Because the second your head goes underwater, they drown you ferociously.
Right.
And they enjoy it too.
Right.
They like watching the life leave your eyes. It's freaky. I've seen some of these power hungry guys in some of those positions, not like megacorps or anything, but I've seen some people that have been fortunate enough to be a part of some successful companies on the up and up. And it's scary.
Right.
Money does things to people.
That it surely does. I think There's a lot of examples of that around the world. But yeah, no, getting back onto this card game and board game situation that we were sort of talking about, I don't know, it just kind of fascinates me that, and maybe this is sort of like business related, but could a card game creator not go to one of these companies and try to like get it licensed or something?
So, I'm not sure if this comes from experience or not, but I heard something from a friend, and that friend had said that somewhere along the line they had heard of another successful card game getting bought out by Hasbro because it had begun to threaten one of their other games, and they just shelved it after they bought it, and then they took it back out to the shed like Old Yeller, and bam, dead.
And I guess that's what unfortunately happens a lot of the times when they're bought out, right? Is that they just die.
Right. Then you don't have the same team behind it. You don't have the same love and compassion for it. So it dies. And it's really unfortunate.
Right.
It just kind of sucks.
Right. Because I guess, not to sort of humanize this in a weird way, but like it's sort of like your baby that you've started and you've grown into something, and then you sell it for a certain amount of money. Not the baby, but the project, I mean. And yeah, then
Wait, you don't sell babies?
No, I don't. Were you expecting to find one here?
Back to board games.
Back to board games. But yeah, in that sense, like, yeah, I guess that's with every business though. Is that safe to say that, like, whenever like a major corporation buys out a company or a new product out there that's like selling like hotcakes, it's usually shelved, or maybe there are examples of it not being shelved, but I guess there's a bit of both. But I'm curious to know from the business guy.
Right. So I got a business major here at UCO. It has served me well. Getting my education was something that was calculated, and it was something that I wanted to do, so I could get into some of the stuff that I think would compensate me well and also be worth doing. The whole point of me getting my education was so that I could market entertainment to people, because that's what I love.
Right.
Entertainment's a very important part of human life. But that being besides the point, what you're talking about are mergers and acquisitions. I think there's a very big difference between the two. Mergers is usually whenever two companies come to a mutual agreement and they come together in order to create something better and greater.
Like a larger corporation. It's more like an addition of two companies creating a bigger.
Versus a larger corporation buying out a small company and absorbing them. That's an acquisition. So a merger's more collaborative, and acquisition's more like hostile takeover.
Right.
To put it lightly. Some acquisitions are violent, bloody massacre takeovers, because those are the ones.
Metaphorically speaking,
depends on who you ask. Yeah, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
In terms of an actual concrete definition,
sure.
A lot of those are like, oh, we're going to take you for your resources and what you got, for your branding, and then we are going to cut all your people. All of your passion's gone. We wanted you for your resources and your capital. So. And for their relationships as well, because other companies want to keep working with the supplier of a good that they know they do the best, so they keep doing business with that even after the acquisition. So I think it depends on how it happens. I think if there's something that's collaborative in nature is generally more healthy, assuming that there's no manipulation or coercion involved, right?
Sure.
As to where acquisitions from the get-go are kind of like, well, don't really have a choice. You need money. We have it. We're buying you.
Right.
Because we're in a position to do so. And the person who has the rights to you has agreed. So the rest of you can take a hike. So usually whenever you hear of mass layoffs and stuff, whenever we're not in a time of economic downturn, I would equate that to acquisitions, because somebody new is coming in, buying the company, firing a bunch of people, hiring their own team. Usually it's best to start from scratch in those situations, because then you get things like resentment and a tricky thing called unionization that corporations tend not to like, because it only costs them money in the long run, like the SAG-AFTRA strike that just ended, which ended well for the writers. The Actors Guild is still having problems as of now, I think. But
at the time we speak.
Right. Hopefully they've come to a good determination And you know, there are bad union deals too. Like there are union deals where the people in the union are getting screwed because the leadership of the union is bad. So it's a case by case basis. Nothing. People need to understand that there's nothing blanket good about certain terms. There's nothing blanket bad about other terms. It's all objective and subjective based on the eye of the beholder and the actual situation that's happening.
Right.
Yeah. So because there's a lot of business people like he supports unions, yeah. And there are other ones, mostly working people, that are like union. There's a lot of negative connotation around that word. It's a very polarizing statement.
Let's elaborate on that a little further, because I've heard about unionization in a different context, which I'll get to in a second. But what is a union in this context, and what is unionization?
So the way that I understand it, and the way that I was taught, a union is an agreement between workers for certain rights to be given to those workers that if the company doesn't agree to, there's legal action and consequence.
Okay.
So usually a union starts whenever a group of people get together and go, okay, look, we want these things. How do we negotiate with a company in order to actually achieve these things? And then through those negotiations, you come to terms agreements. Things are changed. Different contracts are thrown around. Once there's a contract that both parties can agree to, it's signed and things are good. Now, if the people in that union want to give the union power and hurt the company as a whole, then it's a bad situation, right? If there's somebody who's really power hungry at the head of the union and they write a deal, or they take. I don't know if this has ever happened, but I'm sure at some point it's happened on the table. They pay off the head of the union to write a bad deal for the workers, and then under their own terms and conditions, they're actually further either oppressed in the workplace through something, or they're in a worse situation than they were actually.
Right.
So now I don't know if that's ever actually happened, but I'm sure it has. I don't have any concrete evidence. But people do the things that people think of, and someone's caved and someone's scabbed at some point, and they've done something that they shouldn't have, and it wound up hurting everybody, right?
Yeah, I guess like the Hunger Games of business in some sense, where
right.
Is that a good way to sort of frame that?
Yeah, I don't know, but it really is kind of like factioning people against each other, because even within
Well,
unions,
I guess Hunger Games not more. Well, granted, I watched part 2 Hunger Games and I fell asleep, so I don't know much about the Hunger Games, in all honesty. But I just meant that from a sense of warring factions and all that kind of stuff. But bad reference, bad metaphor. Please forgive me. Where were we?
Unions. So
yeah,
for example, I believe that you almost it's almost forced that you have to be a part of the Actors Guild in order to actually be in any movies, like any kind of big time productions. And I'm sure the Actors Guild has done wonderful things. I haven't done a whole lot of reading on the actual terms and conditions as part of being in the Actors Guild.
Opinions.
I came here with complete honesty and just kind of what I know now. And if I'm ignorant, I'd love to be educated. But from what I know, you basically have to be part of the Actors Guild in order to get into any kind of big kind of productions. And any time that you have to be a part of anything in a forced nature in order to do a job or do something that you would like to do, that isn't a requirement of skill or an execution of knowledge, I think there's a lot of danger there. I think there's a lot of danger for abuse of power and manipulation of information, and it can be scary. But like right now, I'm actually more like with what happened with the Writers Guild. I agree, and the Actors Guild that's striking right now, it's over AI images being used to replicate their likeness, and that being used without their permission, without compensation. In different shows and movies, so extras will almost be non-existent, and you can't be paid for being an extra anymore, which is crazy. But that's a corporation thing for people. So in that case, the union's doing good work. But say that it's flipped on its head, and you're not allowed to be in the union for bullshit reasons. Say it comes down to race, even. I'm not accusing the Actors Guild of being racist. I'm just saying that you never know what can happen whenever there's a conglomeration of power inside of one central unit. Because then that's, I mean, you see cases like that all the time. People abusing their power to get, favors of a sexual nature,
right?
To discriminate against groups that they like or dislike. People of power get elected because they're related to other people of power. It's a thing that happens in life.
Right. Yeah. The reason why like the word unionization just sort of, I guess, sprung up in my mind when we started talking about it was because of it being bandied around in wrestling, or professional wrestling, WWE, all that kind of stuff. Because to my knowledge, again, they all are basically contracted to certain companies, right? So there's a specific word for it that escapes my mind right now, but basically, if you had to put it simply, they sign contracts where they're exclusively working for one company, but technically they are independent contractors. So they should be able to work with any company they want, but then WWE, for example, since they're the big dog in the business, they assign you to contracts where you have to exclusively work for them, even though you're an independent contractor. You cannot seek work somewhere else, X, Y, and Z. You don't get certain benefits or whatever because you're an independent contractor. Like I think insurance and things like that. I think
your taxes change,
right?
Because like your company doesn't take any usually profit sharing's out of the question. You're not getting an IRA, a Roth IRA, which is a retirement fund that your company will sometimes match a percentage of your income that you decide to put in there for free. So say that your max match is $2,000, they'll put in $2,000 into your retirement fund for you, on top of the $2,000 that you already put in there. So that's $4,000.
And this is generally for independent contractors, is what you're saying.
That doesn't happen for independent contractors.
Oh, gotcha.
Health insurance and stuff like that. Like the company is not legally liable to provide any of that stuff.
Right.
So a lot of the benefits and things that you were talking about, that's real. If you're ever going to take contract work, be extremely meticulous in what you're signing. I would get a lawyer to go over it with you and have them break it down and explain to you in no uncertain terms exactly all of what this company wants from you and what they'll be providing for you.
And what you're signing up for.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't get overtime. You can't get overtime. There's a lot of different things that go into that. There could be some crazy stipulations like, oh, we don't have to pay you if you don't meet X objective, and X objective could be an insane reach, right? Like, make me $1 kajillion in a year. Is kajillion even a number? Probably not.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways, be very careful about contract work just in general. I've seen a lot of people get screwed because of it, and that's really uncool.
Yeah, but I guess unfortunately that's the world we live in, right? Where people take advantage of each other, and I guess it's
right,
the negative side of the world. But yeah, anyway, I do think, like, just to sort of add to that point of the people in wrestling being independent contractors and stuff, I don't think that they get a cut of merchandise sales and things of that nature. So if like their likeness is used to sell merchandise, I think they get a cut out of that. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but just it was interesting to think about, because especially in a field where people are literally putting their bodies on the line. And yeah, sure, it's not fake. I've made a whole video about this too that you can find on the channel and watch. It's fake as in, like, the stories are predetermined, the result of the match is predetermined, but they're actually putting their bodies on the line.
Right, the physicality of it. I mean, just look up how many surgeries Hulk Hogan's had to have.
Exactly.
Because it's a lot.
It's a lot. So, but anyway, let's not get into that right now. Right. Just to sort of transition into something else that I thought you said was very interesting. You said always a student, never a master. Why do you feel that way? I think, I mean, I know why you feel that way, but let's elaborate on that thought a little further.
In the current connotation of my life, that's super relevant, just because I got a degree. I was like, I'm going to fucking kill it. I'm going to do so good. Tyler, you're smart. You're so smart. You big smart boy. Right? And then I get into the new workplace and I get immediately humbled. I mean, I basically get shin kicked into a flight of stairs, into 3 concussions. Like it was rough.
Metaphorically.
Right. No, that never happened. No one actually shin kicked me. I didn't
Yes.
fall down any stairs.
Metaphorically.
Right. Yeah. Just the way that I talk. Which sets a great precedent.
You're good.
But anywho, yeah, I had to start from scratch, even though I had all this previous knowledge, and some of it's helped me. Some of it's been absolutely useless, and sometimes I can't remember certain things whenever I really need them. Yeah, but like I don't know, everything's a learning experience. You're always learning. You're always if you're not learning, you're dying. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
That's just how life works.
Right.
Like the second you start consuming information, internalizing it, and figuring out how to apply that in your everyday life, you're on a downward trend, my friend. So everything comes with its own unique set of lessons, and if you're not making the most out of those lessons, you are unfortunately falling behind. Not saying that partaking in the rat race is exactly worth it, because I really think people put a lot of value on the rat race and improving, getting more money, getting more fame. Your life is important too. Having a life, because you only get one of them. Can't work all the time. Can't play all the time either, because that'll ruin you. You need a balance. You need a balance of both. Because even people who can play all the time, I mean, look at what their money and fame has done for them that they did not earn, in the ones that have inherited it. And the other ones that did earn, and then they did things that they regret. Addiction, drugs, and severe alcoholism. Like, even like people can agree on those things as being extremely bad. Being addicted to anything, any kind of substance, any kind of, literally anything. Too much of anything will kill you. Even water. We're 75% water, and water can kill you.
Right. Too much of it can. I don't know how much you'll have to drink to get to that too much. I think it depends for different people, but yeah.
It's like how if you eat too many bananas, you'll die of radioactive poison.
Right. Yeah, because potassium and.
But you'll actually die from overeating before you ever get close to that radioactive
stuff. Yeah. Yeah, because there is a radioactive form of potassium. Atomic weight 40 of potassium. Anyway, I won't get into too much chemistry. But what else I was going to get on with that was, do you think we are, as I guess, or as an American society, do you think people are a little too obsessed with this idea of growth? And what I mean by that is, are people overly ambitious? I don't know if that's a fair question to ask, but it's just a thought I have, because I've heard somewhere else where people were discussing about I think, for those of you who know who Abba and Preach are, they're like YouTubers on YouTube. Duh. What would they be? YouTubers on X? I guess not. But anyway.
What are you on X? What do you do on X? Do you send Zeets? Are they Zeets now?
God knows. I haven't used Twitter or X that much recently. But anywho. Probably for the best. Well, yeah.
Well, and all opinions are valuable.
Right.
Even the bad ones.
They are opinions at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, I guess there aren't any bad opinions. They're just opinions. Like I said, take yourself out of the objective stance. Right?
Yeah, I mean, no, I guess you can say that there are some bad opinions and there are some good opinions. But yeah. Right. But anyway, what I was trying to get at was, I think one of their videos they talked about, and I can't remember much about the context of these videos or of this specific topic. But it was about how, like, people in other parts of the world are sometimes happy with what they have and are not always like trying to get, like, constantly keep getting. And maybe I'm mixing multiple ideas into one and sort of putting their name on it. So please forgive me for doing that if I am. But yeah, I'm just curious to know, like, is that a thought, or do you have any thoughts on it?
So for me personally, and for my close circle, I feel like there's a huge problem with contentment in American culture. I think there's always a necessity for more, and people are never like okay where they are. I think ambition is a huge driver for growth, and I think it's a very important thing to have, because I think you should go out there and you should achieve what you want from life.
Right.
Because like I said, you only get the one. You only get the one time to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not trying as many things as possible, you're really wasting your time here. Like, I think doing the things that you like is also extremely valuable, and you should do those things too. I think you should even do some of the things that you don't like. I think you should do some of the things. I think it's necessary that you do the things that you hate for a while.
That is also true.
Just so that you can understand what's going on. Why do you hate this? What are the problems with XYZ situation in your own mind's eye? Now, that being said, I do think that there's a serious problem where people are like more all the time, and you break. And I think there's a ton of stories of people breaking. The male suicide rate is very high.
Right.
I mean, it's extremely. It's disgusting, like how high it is. And I say that in a sense of like it should never ever be as high as it is. Because it's real serious. It's real serious. There's a lot of people are hurt by that. Luckily, I haven't ever been touched by that. I came very close. There's a couple people that I've had some real serious conversations with.
Right.
About themselves. And experiences with depression and things. It's just, it's not fun. But my point in saying that is that the more things you go for, the more pressure you put on yourself, and the more pressure that other people put on you, the closer to that breaking point that you get. And I think if you don't reset that line and you take some time to evaluate what you have, and you understand that, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay, because you live and then you die. And so those things have to happen. Those are the things that happen, right? So I think it's very important to have a conversation with yourself and be like, okay, look, I do want these things. It's awesome. It's great. But I don't need to go so far as to put myself in danger to achieve those things. Because at the end of the day, if you're alive today, but if tomorrow you're going to do 6 things and it result in your death, like what's the point, right? There's no more building your legacy. There's no more chances to grow. There's no more chances to even try and achieve any of the stuff that you want to do.
Yeah, because it's basically the end.
Right.
To put it very bluntly, I suppose.
So there is such a thing as too much ambition. There is such a thing as being too content, because that breeds complacency, and complacency is laziness.
Right.
You need a balance of both. It's a balance, which America does not have. No, the most of America does not have.
Gotcha.
Blanket statements, right? But I think people can really feel this statement, especially because, like, I mean, and it's not just men that commit suicide; it's women too.
Right.
And
I think it's existent on either, or on the spectrum entirely. So
because there's pressure on both sides,
right,
that affect everybody, non-binary people, every subgroup you can think of has a different kind of form of pressure. But the pressure to perform is really there, especially if you see yourself as a provider and a caretaker. Like if you're responsible for the life of somebody else, like you're taking care of this person, have a family. I think it can get real tough, because then there's the things that you want to do and the things that you have to do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But on the flip side, though, like when I look at some of these people who have become successful, there's always an element of, for the lack of a better word, extremism in the way they get there. Do you get what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
So just 2 randos on the internet shooting the shit. Like, what do you... I'm guessing that even with that extremism, some of it is probably calculated, or they know where to draw the line, or they just... Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I've met a lot of people, right? Especially in just doing the things I do, I naturally meet a lot of people. A lot of very successful people, a lot of people with a lot of money. Sometimes the best people I've met are the people without any money, because they actually understand that being a person is important. But that's besides the point. A lot of people who've made a lot of money are so extreme that it has resulted in catastrophic events happening in their personal life.
That is also true.
You can only equate so much value to monetary, and you can only spend so much time chasing the dollar versus cultivating relationships, because you can't buy everything.
Right.
Like, you can't buy real friendship. Like, it doesn't exist. So that being said, I think the extreme people are successful because they're extreme, but that extremism costs them greatly.
Right.
I think that having a normal life and being a normal person,
Quote unquote. Yeah.
is something that is taken for granted
Mm.
because people, especially now that we play the comparison game all the time with social media, see all these people that are being themselves, right?
With their
And-
curated posts and
Right.
Photoshop.
But
Anyway.
these guys are working every day. They're posting every day, making content every day of the week. You understand how that's unsustainable. You can't do that and still have a normal relationship filled life, and you got to take breaks sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like anytime you see the mega successful, the mega wealthy, they start to equate that personal value way too much with money. And I think that drive for accomplishment costs them in some way.
Right.
Does that answer what you're looking for?
No, yeah, it kind of does, because I do think that at the end of the day, like with a lot of the famous people who seem to have it together, they do seem like people who have their feet on the ground a little bit as well, to where they know when to sort of take a step back.
Right.
They take the breaks that they need. I think of, I don't know why, but I'm thinking of Rogan or other comedians like Andrew Schultz, or I don't know, like some cricketers or some sports people for that matter, right? Like there's a lot of people, while they are largely successful, there is, I wouldn't use the word balance there because it's still quite an imbalance, but I think they know when to sort of walk away, take a break, at least some of them from what we know.
Like if I keep going, I'm going to break. So I need to take a break. Right? Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way. I think you need to hustle, you need to grind, you need to do what you enjoy. And if you're doing what you enjoy and you're really pounded at home, freaking get out there and do it. But understand that sometimes you got to take a break. You got to take a breather.
Yeah, because burnout is a real thing. Like,
yeah,
it's actually quite easy to get burned out if you're not checking yourself, and when you're like, stepping away from something that you're doing and giving yourself that break. And when I say break, I also mean like a mental break, because I think, well, I'm the kind of guy, I don't mind saying this online, but I'm the kind of guy that even if I'm physically taking a break, mentally my brain is still ticking. I'm like, oh, there's this to do, there's that to do, there's that to do, there's that to do. Oh, a week later, after I'm done with this break, I have this to do. Oh, I want to start that. Oh, I want to do this. Like my brain, like, is not taking a break. So I think that's also very important to sort of try and find things that you can do to just shut off a little. Like, take a break, take a breather, take a chill pill, shoot the shit with people.
Exactly. Have a nice conversation.
Have a nice conversation. The conversation, sometimes it's all you need. Yeah, it's I don't know, like with a lot of these, like you said, ultra successful people who sort of lost touch. It's sort of like they forget that human side to things, right? So it's just fascinating how the world revolves and the kind of people that exist. But I think there's something to learn from everybody, right? Like there's something to learn from every individual. Something that, like, I try to remind myself a lot is that people are walking life lessons. Like, they're life lessons for things that you shouldn't do in life, and they're possibly life lessons for the things you should do in life. So you can take whatever you want to take out of every single individual you meet. So it's just not saying that people shouldn't be ambitious. They should, or even if they don't want to use the word ambition, like
Passion.
just explore your curiosities, right? Like, do things that you like doing, but also know that sometimes you will have to do, like you said, do things that you don't like doing, right? Like sometimes, again, not saying do shit that affects people, but
or harmful stuff.
Harmful stuff. That's what I was trying to get at. Yes, harmful stuff. But you still have to learn. Like, like, I don't mind saying this. I wouldn't say like I liked making drinks at Starbucks. Like, I didn't. I prefer to do other roles wherein, like, I was stocking stuff, making sure there was enough milk in the fridge or enough whipped cream, for the drinks, for enough espresso beans, da 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 da. I did not want to make drinks, but I mean, I did because I was required to.
Right.
But it's not something I like doing. So I know that's a very simplistic way of sort of saying that you have to do things you don't like, but I think that you can extrapolate that to a lot of different things in life.
I worked weekends at the restaurant before I got my formal education, and then worked at the university for literally from sophomore year, so from when I was 16 to 19. So I lost three years worth of weekends,
right,
and during a crucial development time in my life. And I didn't really want to do that, but I did it so I could get through school.
Right.
Like I had to do it.
Right.
Like it was necessary.
Right.
So yeah, I totally get it. I mean, there are parts of that job I loved and others that I hated. And I had my regulars that treated me nice and other people that treated me like shit. I had the dine-in dashers, It's a real struggle.
Yeah. Would you? I try to have a positive outlook, but sometimes it's very easy to think that life is a struggle. Are you the kind of person that would say, "Oh, grass is greener on the other side," or are you the kind of person that says, "Oh, the grass is green where I am"?
So that's really hard, especially like where I am currently, right? Because personally speaking, I've got a lot of that ambition. I've got a lot of things I want to do.
Right.
I'm doing the things I need to do now, I would say. So I think right now in this current stage, I think the grass is greener on the other side. But I think certain patches of grass are always greener on the other side.
That is true.
You've got some dead grass in your lawn. Your neighbor has some dead grass on their lawn. Sometimes it's hidden due to the fact that your eyesight's not 20/20 and then you've got a terrible stigmatism in my case. So but that being said, I guess what I mean is everything always looks shinier before you're in the middle of it.
Very true.
And every now and again you step in a big pile of shit anyway.
Very true.
So, and that can be on your lawn or and somebody else's. But I think you need to walk on both and have a good determination of, oh, I do like that lawn better. Or, oh, I should have stayed on my last lawn, whatever. And if you're good at relationships and not burning bridges, a lot of the time you can experience both and not really cost yourself anything. But there is also a lot of time where you can not experience either because you didn't have your feet firmly in one or the other, and it costs you opportunity.
Right. Yeah, because you can't have your feet on both boats at the same time as well, right? So
Right.
yeah, I mean, life can seem like a very hard thing to tread, so to speak. But I think a lot of it just comes from falling down and getting back up again and going at it again. A lot of trial and error at the end of the day. Like that's one thing that I've taken out of experiences in general is that shit, all of this is trial and error, like to put it simply. Because even with like taking advice from people, right? Like or at least I'm quite privy to a lot of self-improvement stuff on the internet because that's the kind of stuff I follow more so than anything. And the one thing that I've learned from that also is that a lot of the shit that people say on there, sure, not saying that it doesn't work, but I'm also saying that it doesn't have to work for you because they're coming from their place of they're coming from their own experiences, how circumstances of life were in that moment for them, and that is not going to be the same for you. It's just as simple as that. So
Right.
I think it's also important to make that realization of the fact that you can't just superimpose something that you see on the internet and believe that, oh, that's how my life is going to work too. Not quite. A lot of that is also trial and error, right? Like you want to try that, but I guess don't be wedded to expecting the same results because you might not get the same results just because you are not the person you took that information from. So, but anyway, not to sort of end on a very drab note. What are some positives you take out of life? Let's end it with that.
Yeah, because we talked a lot about a lot of serious stuff. But I honestly, I'm an extremely blessed person. I've got great relationships. I've got a loving family. you know, I've gotten to experience so many things that other people have not gotten to experience.
Right.
Just because I put myself out there and I've treated people the way that I want to be treated. You know, make fun of the golden rule all you want, but I've truly and I mean, you can speak from experience because I mean, we know each other pretty well at this point.
Right.
Like it's been almost 2 years.
Yeah, it's closing in on 2 years. I'd say sometime. No, it'll be 2 years. I think. No, it's actually a year and a half.
Is it a year and a half? Yeah, closer to a year and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, so regardless to say, I've met a lot of different people from a lot of different places. Right. And I've gotten the opportunity to really get to know some of these people and aspects of their culture that they decided to share with me. And there's nothing more beautiful than getting a better look into other perspectives. So you know, if you go out there, you're really trying to make a relationship. I think that people think that it's so hard to meet people and make friends, which is true. But I do think that there's a certain amount that you owe to yourself and to the people around you to getting out there, getting involved in your community.
Right.
You know, finding all the ways, all the things that you have to say yes to, even the things that you don't want to do. So that way you have the opportunity to establish relationships that are valuable to you. So, and I'm very fortunate that I've had those opportunities present themselves. Sometimes you can work your whole life and not get that opportunity. So, yeah, I think that's really positive.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, both of us are quite blessed to be able to sit in a place like this and, you know, be in front of camera and talk about stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people have that luxury around the world. So, no, that's definitely a very positive and comforting note to end on.
Yeah.
I'm just picking off dust on the table as we're speaking. I don't know why. But anyway, thank you so much, Tyler.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this. We could probably have a chat about a lot of other stuff another time.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I could have done this for 4 hours.
Right. So us just scraping the surface right now.
I really think that we could definitely do this again. I'd be honored and blessed to be back here and do this again. Thank you, Pratik. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this, and I even had to reschedule on you, and you still worked with me. So
it's all good,
fantastic.
Man. It's all good.
Last week was crazy.
It's all good.
Wild.
It's all good. I'm glad we got to do this, and I'm sure we'll do another one of these again. But yeah, until then, we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.